Welcome back, Defenders. The destruction of Russia's oil industry continues. Ukraine's deep strike campaign is significantly crippling Russian military logistics as the fuel crisis worsens. This is according to General Sersky. Here's what he has to say. The capabilities of the enemy's military-industrial complex have been significantly reduced. We can see this on the battlefield. This is a fuel crisis in Russia, which directly affects logistics and the supply of its army. Ukraine is not just striking these refineries for the economic impact. That's important. But this is directly affecting the performance of frontline Russian troops today. The Russian military needs gasoline. It needs diesel, lubricant, jet fuel. Every time one of these refineries goes offline, yes, this affects the combat performance of Russia's frontline forces, which is why Ukraine cannot stop. Ukraine must continue striking these refineries. Ukrainian drones hit major oil refinery in southern Russia for the second time in a month. This is the Afipsky refinery in Krasnodar. This is where it's located. Ukraine has now struck this numerous times. There are pictures and videos showing the refinery on fire in the distance. I'll link it down below. But here's the war map. Updated again. Here is the Afipsky refinery. It's only 415 kilometers from the border, and it produces 7 million tons of refined products a year. Ukraine struck this refinery once in 2023, once in 2024, and now 3 times in the last 2 months. So there's something I think special about this refinery. I don't know, but perhaps gasoline from this refinery is what is shipped to Crimea. And if this refinery goes offline, yes, there's going to be shortages in Crimea, but Russia has to rearrange their logistics. Some other refinery that's not been taken offline has to redirect, causing shortages somewhere else. Could be the reason. Ukrainian military strikes 3 gas distribution stations in occupied Luhansk. This is Ukraine's 14th Regiment. They released the drone pictures showing successful strikes on this gas distribution stations in Luhansk. 3 of them, I guess they're offline. Oil pumping station in Russia's Chuvashia Republic suspends operations after a drone attack. This pipeline, or Chuvashia Republic, is located right here. This is way east of Moscow. This is what the pumping station looks like, and Ukraine successfully struck it. This is pretty remote Russia, so I don't think we're going to get any pictures or videos, but Russia confirmed that the pipeline is offline. This is the Almatevsk-Gorky oil pipeline. It's another target, another thing Russia has to protect. Here's the results. Here is our progress meter. 1 in 50 gas stations in Russia stop selling fuel. Even Moscow feels the pinch. So whenever these regions experience a shortage, it doesn't actually last very long. But these disruptions are very concerning to the private gas station owners. And rather than having inconsistency, rather than having Russian drivers mad at you all the time, some Russian gas stations are just choosing to close down. They were barely operating at a profit before, and now they just can't deal with the chaos. Crimean fuel shortages expose reach of Ukraine's refinery targeting campaign. This has been confirmed, more or less, by the Russians. 25% of their oil refining capacity has been knocked offline. Currently, 27,000 tons of surplus crude oil is being pumped and has nowhere to go. Ukraine is not striking the pumping stations in the Arctic. There's no need. If you destroy the pipelines, the pumping stations, the refineries, the export terminals, the storage depots, there's physically nowhere to put the oil after it comes out of the ground, so Russia just has to pump less. 14% of gas stations in the Caucasus, this is the southern district, they've been affected, but 50% of the gas stations on Crimea have been affected. These are the signs going up across Russia. This sign in Russian says, "We apologize, but 95 gasoline is only available with fuel cards for specific organizations. For example, if you're with the military or the government." This sign says, "Dear customers, 92 and 95 gasoline is available only for special purpose vehicles, government or military." This sign just says there's no gas at all. This sign says no gasoline or diesel fuel. And we've even got a report from Reuters. This is the report that Reuters put out about the gas shortage in Crimea.
This is the line for gas at a station in Sevastopol, a port city in Russian-controlled Crimea. As Ukraine steps up its drone attacks on Russian refineries and export terminals, motorists are feeling the bite. A gasoline shortage has hit more than 10 regions across Russia, according to the Izvestia newspaper, citing a fuel producers union. This resident says he's had to queue for 40 minutes to fill his tank, but says he's not panicking quite yet. Sergei Aksionov.
40 minutes to fill up your tank. He's not panicking yet. This is the governor of Crimea, and I'm actually going to read for you specifically what he says. "Because in this case, some of our plants are simply physically not working, that is, meaning we have problems and fuel outages, it is guaranteed that the situation will improve within 2 days when it comes to 95 gasoline, and within 2 weeks at most, the issue of the availability of 92 gasoline will be resolved. There are no problems with diesel fuel. The necessary quantities are available. The situation is objective, and I ask the residents of Crimea and guests on the peninsula to be patient. This situation is caused by objective reasons. Well, I repeat once again that the issue with the 95 gasoline will be fully resolved within 2 days. Within 2 weeks, it will be resolved for 92 gasoline." He's lying. The situation is not going to get better. If, I guess, shipments of gasoline are redirected to Crimea, then there's just going to be shortages in other areas. It's a game of whack-a-mole. Yes, I think Putin might prioritize Crimea for the publicity, but that then means some rural area of Siberia is just going to be without gasoline. This is a finite problem. There's only so much that Russia can now produce with 25% of their capacity offline, but consumer demand is still there. Military demand is still there. Russia to partially ban diesel exports and extend gasoline restrictions after Ukrainian drone attacks. Russia made money by exporting refined oil products, and they've now got an export ban. This is problematic for Russian consumers because Russia made money by shipping their gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, whatever, to other countries. They made a nice profit. That profit subsidized the cost for gasoline for ordinary Russians. If Russia can't export, the government doesn't make money, but the subsidies for Russian consumers is also gone now. This is going to upset a lot of Russians who have been used to cheap gasoline their entire lives. Then there's this. Firefighters battle massive blaze after truck collision derails trains in western Russia. This was a train coming from Belarus to Russia on the border, and something crazy happened. A truck collided with a fuel train car. I'll link the videos down below, but this is a massive, massive ball of fire as 12 fuel cars derailed and then ignited because a truck hit it somehow. The truck was reported to have crossed the tracks against a red light. The as yet unidentified truck driver died, while the train driver and his assistant were injured but refused hospitalization. The train was carrying fuel and lubricants, apparently from Belarus, going to Russia. Was this sabotage? Was Ukraine behind it? I don't think they would get a driver to commit suicide to do this, but I don't know. I don't know if this is just Russia being Russia and a truck driver ran a red light and then slammed into a fuel car fuel that Russia desperately needs. Interesting. So that's what Ukraine is doing. They're playing to win. What are the Russians doing? More acts of terrorism. This was Russia's drone and missile attack last night. 643 aerial targets. You can see they've got drones, cruise missiles, and even ballistic missiles. 12-year-old girl among dead. Hospital hit as Russia pounds Kyiv with drones and missiles. These are the pictures online this morning, and this is just heartbreaking. These are residential streets that have no military purpose. Russia just does this to commit terrorism. Let me read for you what Zelensky is saying. A massive Russian attack on Ukraine last night for more than 12 hours. Savage strikes, a deliberate targeted terrorist against ordinary cities. Nearly 500 attack drones and over 40 missiles, including Kinzhal missiles. This morning, Russian Iranian Shaheeds are again in our skies. The main targets of the enemy was Kyiv, Sumy, Chernihiv, Odessa. As of now, 4 people have been reported killed in Kyiv, including a 12-year-old girl. My condolences to all the families and the loved ones. This vile attack came virtually as the close of the UN General Assembly Week, and this is exactly how Russia declares its true position. Moscow wants to keep fighting and killing, and it deserves the toughest pressure from the world. I'll link some of these videos down below if you just want to see residential areas in the capital city of Kyiv, Zaporizhia, Odessa, Sumy. This is almost every night. So here is the message that Zelensky has directly for Putin. I'm going to read this. I think this is a very important video. But this is what Zelensky is now saying. Russia must clearly understand that civilized countries differ from barbaric ones in that they never strike first and they are not the aggressors. But that doesn't mean they are weak, and you shouldn't show weakness. If there is a threat of a blackout, for example in the capital city of Ukraine, the Kremlin must know that there will be a blackout in the Russian capital. This is a brief summary of some of the points we discussed with the president. So Zelensky had a really good conversation with Trump, and I don't know why, but Trump was very receptive. There's talks about Trump possibly approving the sale of Tomahawk cruise missiles so that Zelensky can hit Moscow. But Zelensky has this new confidence. This tweet and the statements put out by Trump, Zelensky is capitalizing on this momentum, making threats to the Russians. And what he's telling them, if you continue going after our energy infrastructure, trying to shut off the lights, then Ukraine finally is going to retaliate. And this is what they did. After this drone and missile attack, Ukraine launched their own attack against the city of Belgorod. For the first time, I think, targeting Belgorod's thermal power plant. This is a big deal because this is a huge shift in what Ukraine has been trying to do. For the last 3.5 years, Ukraine has been very careful not to commit any war crimes. By definition, a war crime is going after purely civilian infrastructure. But Russia's been doing this for 3.5 years. 80% of Ukraine's power generation came from thermal power plants, I believe. And Russia destroyed them all. Every coal and gas burning power plant in Ukraine, the Russians have already bombed and destroyed over the last 3.5 years. The only reliable power that Ukraine still has is the hydroelectric power plants and the remaining nuclear power plants. But Ukraine has had to import basically mobile power plants that burn natural gas or fuel. There's lots of generators in Ukraine to fill the electricity gaps, but Russia still targets them. Solyov on Kremlin State TV for 3 years has been bragging about going after energy infrastructure so that Ukrainians don't have any electricity, they don't have any heat, they don't have any running water. That has been Russia's objective to win this war for 3 years, committing war crimes and going after Ukraine's energy infrastructure. And Ukraine's not been fighting back. Ukraine for 3.5 years has not been responding by going after thermal power plants. But they did it. This is a monumental shift. So there is a video of the strike on the thermal power plant. A Russian managed to catch it and then upload it online. I'll link this down below if you want to see it. But the city of Belgorod is without power. Because there's no power, there's no pumping stations. So the residents of Belgorod also do not have running water. They can't pull water from their taps, they can't take showers, they can't flush their toilets. This is the moment when the power went out. Residents were in the local mall, and I'll just share a little bit of this clip. Don't you just hate it when the escalator doesn't work? So here's the map. Here is the map of Russia showing all of their thermal power plants. You can see there's 4 down here in the southern district. There's 3 really close to the Ukrainian border. Even the ones near St. Petersburg. These are all within drone and now missile range of Ukraine. So I think this was Zelensky giving a final warning to the Russians. He's been way more generous than I would have been by now. But he's telling Russia, stop attacking our civil infrastructure, otherwise we have to retaliate. This has been Russia's strategy for 3.5 years. Asymmetrical warfare. Russia doesn't care about war crimes. Russia doesn't care what happens to civilians. Russia doesn't care what happens to POWs. There are some things that I think Ukraine would never do, like there's no reason to target civilians deliberately or torture POWs. Ukraine's not going to do that kind of stuff. But these thermal power plants, I think these are fair game. After what Russia has done the last 3 years, it's time. It's time just to take these things offline so Russia finally has an incentive to end this war. Ukraine says Russia is using new tactics on the front. Sersky said Russia has switched its frontline tactics and was now deploying small groups of between 4 to 6 soldiers tasked with infiltrating Ukraine's defenses. This salient that formed about a month and a half ago, the Russians went about 18 kilometers deep, but they didn't do this in a sustained attack. What Russia is doing is they're sending sabotage and infiltration groups through no man's land. They're giving them thermal cloaks to hide their heat signature, and they're just sending them in every direction, seeing how far they can get. So for this specific operation, they got pretty far. Russia then determined what a clear path was, so they rushed in a couple hundred or maybe more than 1,000 troops into this region. Ukraine identified it, responded, and this is now a kill zone. Ukraine's 1st Army Corps has encircled hundreds of Russian troops in 3 separate pockets after they broke through Ukrainian lines near the city of Pokrovsk, and they're now methodically wiping them out. This is not going well for Russia, but there are remaining forces in this pocket, in this pocket, and in this pocket, and Ukraine is just picking them off. Ukraine has a containment area, and they're just using artillery and FPV drones to snipe them wherever they can. It's not going well for Russia. And then there's this. If anyone runs, shoot them. Russian commander heard ordering execution of his own deserters. This is a pretty incredible article. This is from the news agency Verstka. This is a Russian independent agency, obviously publishing information without the approval of the Kremlin. And this article documents or records what do mobilized Russian soldiers think and feel. Russia mobilized almost 500,000 troops. This was 3 years ago. And this organization has been reaching out to some of these soldiers on Telegram, trying to get their thoughts and opinions. And it's not positive. The Mobiks, these are the mobilized men, have found it particularly hard to deal with the indefinite nature of their service, which has led many of them and their relatives to describe their relationship with the Russian Ministry of Defense as slavery. These guys didn't sign a contract. They were reservists, because I think almost every adult Russian man who did a conscription service is technically in the reserves. But they didn't sign contracts. They didn't want to go to Ukraine. At first, they told us you'd go for 3 months at most, 6 months at most. After 6 months, we thought a year is the maximum. But soon we'll be entering our 4th year, and we're constantly thinking about demobilization, says one mobilized officer. All of these quotes are from this article. I'll link it down below. I'm just going to read a couple for you. Here are some more statements from the mobilized. I wish I could go back 3 years and tear up that draft notice. I'd rather take a suspended sentence than have spent all this time fighting and suffering. Every day out here has felt like a waste of my life. Meat. That's how they see us. Like we're not allowed to have our own opinions or feelings. We're just expendable bodies, sent out to do a job and nothing more. If only we could all go home at once, they'd excrete themselves. Others say that the Russian government is deliberately exterminating its own people to replace them with foreign migrants. They claim that the authorities are interested in zeroing out the people and needing to eliminate as many men as possible. So these hundreds of thousands of mobilized Russian men in the occupied territories, they don't exactly get good information. So they're very confused why they're going on year 4 of their mobilization when they were promised 6 months, a year tops. And the war's not going well. So they've seen so many of their comrades killed. A lot of them have conspiracy theories that it's deliberate for some reason, that their military leadership wants to kill them, to replace them with foreigners or something. It's a conspiracy. It doesn't have to make sense, but these men are desperate, and they don't want to do this anymore. I'd never make it home alive. Russia's war in Ukraine turns conscripts into deserters. I've seen informal reports over the last year that the desertion rate in the Russian military has skyrocketed. Ukraine also has problems with desertion. This war is horrible. But for the Russians, it's getting really bad. And it's because how they're treated on the front lines. Obviously, I can't show you these videos. I'm going to have to cover this up. But in this video, this is a Russian man hanging upside down, being beaten by his commanding officer. How the Russian military maintains control over these hundreds of thousands of men, and it's through brutality. Sheer brutality. I've seen Russian soldiers thrown in pits and then told by their commanding officer to fight to the death. I've seen dozens and dozens of videos of Russian soldiers just committing suicide because they're hopeless and they don't see a purpose in going on anymore. There's also this. There's just really no camaraderie or patriotism. Russian soldiers and volunteers bringing humanitarian aid are being systematically robbed at military checkpoints, according to Russian war bloggers. The culprits are the infamously corrupt military police who confiscate the equipment for their own use, or they resell it to make money for themselves. Yeah, I think that's 100% true, that the internal military police in the occupied territories, they kill whoever they want to kill, they take whatever they want to take. That is the Russian world in a nutshell. Hey, we got another dead guy. A pro-Putin politician was found hanging from a tree with his hands bound. Vitaly Kupistin, 43, was a construction company owner and a regional deputy. The police were alerted when he was found hanging from a tree by the roadside, with his hands tied behind his back. Eyewitnesses expressed skepticism about the possibility of him committing suicide. He was so high up there. How did he get up there? Hey, we get to update my second favorite Wikipedia page of all time, suspicious Russia-related deaths since 2022. This is the list of all of the business leaders and politicians in Russia who have mysteriously died, just disappeared for whatever reason. And if we scroll to the bottom, there he is, Vitaly Kupistin, 43. He'll probably be ruled a suicide by the FSB. This is a crazy story. 19 killed in bootleg alcohol poisoning in Russia's Leningrad region. Local media reported, citing anonymous sources, that one of the spirit producers was a 79-year-old who had been fined in 2019 for selling diluted alcohol at cut-rate prices. State-run news outlets claimed the person suspected of supplying raw alcohol for production was a 60-year-old kindergarten worker. Russia has faced repeated waves of deadly surrogate alcohol poisonings. Somebody was making their own moonshine and killed 25 people. Alcohol poisoning death toll rises to 25. Your alcohol is strong, Russia. It's very strong. It's killing people. I'm going to quick mention this story because I hate the government of Hungary. Hungarian drones breached Ukraine's airspace, according to Zelensky. General Staff documents Hungarian drone routes into Ukraine. So yes, there were drones launched from Hungary to go over, I'm guessing, military sites in western Ukraine. These are obviously spy or surveillance drones. Either the Hungarian government was behind it, or the Hungarian government doesn't care that Russian operatives are in their country flying these drones. Zelensky is confronted and called out Viktor Orban, and Viktor Orban is playing the victim. Hungary is a member of NATO and the EU. Ukraine would have collapsed long ago without the support of these two organizations. President Zelensky, with all due respect, stop harassing us. Just shoot down the drones. Just shoot down nothing should be flying in Ukraine's skies anyways. Man, we gotta get rid of this guy. There's also an election happening today in Moldova. By the time you see this video, the results might be known. Moldova is in danger. Moldova's president urges citizens to vote on election day. This Sunday, Moldova heads into its most consequential election. Its outcome will decide whether we consolidate our democracy and join the EU, or whether Russia drags us back into a gray zone, making us a regional risk. Moldova's future must be decided by Moldovans, not Moscow. Election is today. Russia spent billions of dollars bribing people to vote for the pro-Russian political party. And I hope it works out. We'll get the results later today. One piece of good news, Denmark to provide military aid package to Ukraine worth $400 million. Thank you so much, the fantastic Danish. Final video, once again, is from Yaroslava. She has her letters from Ukraine on Patreon if you want to support her there. But she visited an art exhibition in Kyiv, and I just thought it was interesting, so I wanted to share it with you guys. These paintings are from famous Ukrainian artists, and somehow they were digitized and then animated, and it's art of art. Cool. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.